Hello everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful day. What would you do if the man helping you rebuild your home suddenly admitted, "I've lost everything, even my place in the family business"? Would you walk away from his failure or hold his hand and build something new from zero together? Today we'll step into Diep's world as James confesses the truth, risks losing her, and together they decide whether love can become a new company and a new life. If this story touches you, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next episodes. The concrete step is still warm from the afternoon sun, but the air around it has already turned cool. Diep sinks down with a soft exhale, brushing dust from her palms onto her jeans. Behind her, the half-finished chicken coop slumps in the corner. In front of her, the yard is scattered with bricks, tools, and the pieces of a future she's determined to assemble. "Let's rest a little, then we'll continue," James says, lowering himself beside her. Even in the fading light, she can see the fine line of exhaustion at the corner of his mouth. He's been carrying beams, measuring walls, talking about pipes and water tanks. For a moment they just sit there, listening to their breathing quiet down. A familiar nudge of time appears like a whisper in Diep's mind. It's almost time to pick up knee. She glances toward the narrow road that leads to the school. "We'll have to stop soon," she murmurs.
"I don't want Nye waiting at the gate alone again." James nods immediately, no argument, just that quiet understanding she's slowly learning to lean on. "Of course. Nye first," he says. "We can always finish the coop later." Her eyes move across the yard. The coop, the rough outline of a future bathroom. A stack of bricks that will someday become a wall to keep out the wind. While they were hammering and sawing, the plan had sounded simple. Fix the roof, build the coop, save up for a small, sealed room where Nye could bathe without shivering. Bathing outside, even with water boiled on the stove, has its own kind of cruelty when the wind rises. She knows what it feels like to hurry a child through a bath when her lips are turning blue and the tin roof is rattling.
A proper bathroom isn't just about comfort. It's about dignity. About giving Nye a childhood that doesn't always feel like survival. Her mind starts sketching again, the way it always does when she's tired but refuses to give up. A brick wall here, from this corner to that one. A pipe running along the back of the house. A water tank lifted high so gravity can do what money can't. Beside her, James leans back on his hands, following her gaze. "If we put the tank here," he says softly, "you won't have to carry buckets so far. You'll have water straight into the bathroom. Close the door, lock it, no drafts, no neighbors accidentally walking by." His words make her throat tighten. He sees her, not just as a single mom-making do, but as a woman who deserves privacy, safety, and a little softness. "Do you think we can really do it?" she asks, not accusing, just tired. The kind of tired that comes from years of being the only adult in the room, the only one planning, worrying, calculating the price of every improvement in bowls of soup and school notebooks. James doesn't answer right away. The silence stretches between them, not uncomfortable, but heavy with something unspoken. "We'll find a way," he says finally. But there's a delay in his voice, a weight that wasn't there before. "Step by step, brick by brick, you've already done the hardest part, you know." She huffs a small laugh. "What's that?" Not giving up, he replies, and there's so much sincerity in the words that she has to look away. The sky shifts from bright afternoon to the softer blues of early evening. Shadows in the yard grow longer, stretching over the tools. A soft breeze travels across the yard, cool against the back of her neck. They sip water from shared bottles, passing them back and forth without thinking about it. Each small pause, a swallow, a sigh, a shift in posture feels like a tiny agreement. We're tired, but we're still here. When we build that wall, Tudep says quietly, nodding toward the spot she's been imagining, I want Nai to be able to take a bath without shaking from the cold. I want her to have a door she can lock. I want her to feel like this house is really hers. It already is, James says. We're just helping it catch up. She smiles, but there's a tremor in it. Every repair they make feels like a promise, not just to Nai, but to herself, that life can be kinder than it has been. Soon, near the school gate, children will spill out, voices high, shoes scuffing the dust, backpacks bouncing against small shoulders. Nai will be there in her red coat, eyes searching the road until she spots them. Tudep can already hear her laughter, feel the small, warm weight of her daughter's hand slipping into hers. No one says it out loud, but both of them know the truth. Every nail they hammer, every wall they plan, every pipe they measure is for that moment, for the ritual of walking home together under a deepening sky, for dinners eaten without the wind slapping at the door, for warm water in a basin, steam curling up under a single light bulb. The silence between them deepens. James stares at the ground for a long beat, thumb rubbing at a small scrape on his palm. Finally, he draws in a breath that seems to come from somewhere far inside him. James checks his watch, then glances toward the road, as if measuring a distance she can't see. The way his shoulders draw in makes her stomach tighten. For a second, a cold thought flashes through her mind. Is he about to say he's leaving? Going back to the city? Back to his old life without us? Her hand tightens on the edge of the step. She forces a small smile.
If you need to go back to your world, just say it, she jokes softly. But her chest doesn't get the joke at all. Tudep, he says quietly. There's something I need to tell you before we go get Nai. She turns toward him fully this time, straightening up on the step. The air shifts like the moment before rain. His eyes don't quite meet hers. I should have told you earlier, he adds, his voice dropping lower. I just didn't want to bring more worry into this yard, but you deserve to know the truth about me. All of it. My father kicked me out of every company I used to manage. The words come out too fast, like he's afraid he'll lose his nerve if he waits. His fingers knot together, then pull apart again. He stares at a crack in the concrete instead of at her face.
When he finally looks up, his eyes dart away almost instantly, as if her gaze is too bright to stand under right now. He lets out a tiny laugh that was supposed to sound casual, but it breaks halfway, exposing the panic he's been carrying alone. For a second, the man who's been lifting beams and sketching plans in the dirt looks completely unarmed. He stares at his hands, jaw tight. I'm not rich anymore, he says. I'm not a director, I just have a little capital left and some income from a few investments, but it's not stable. Nothing is like before. Everything I used to be sure of. His voice thins. It's gone. Tudep has seen hints of this. Too many free afternoons, a phone that doesn't ring for meetings, No car waiting to pull him back to the city. But knowing is one thing. Hearing him say it out loud is another. So, all those companies? She asks quietly. Gone, he repeats. I didn't walk away. My father pushed me out. He decided I was a risk. Too soft, too distracted, not cold enough to be the sun on top. His mouth twists. Instead of backing me, he pulled everything. One day I was young director. The next day I was just a man with some savings and no chair anywhere. He lets out a short, humorless breath. I've been pretending it's a break, he admits, calling it time to think or time to help on the farm. But the truth is, I'm scared. I'm scared you'll look at me and see someone who failed his family and lost his position. Not the man with a title, just a man with calluses and a few ideas. I'm telling you because, he swallows, because I don't want to hide from you. If we're going to build anything, this coop, this house, any kind of life, you deserve to know exactly who's sitting beside you. No office, no big chair, just this yard, what's left of my capital, and what I know how to do, that's it. Silence follows his words, but it isn't the cruel kind. Somewhere above the tin roof, the first star pricks through. Diep looks down at their feet, both dusty from the same ground, and something in her chest tightens, not from disappointment but recognition. She knows what it feels like to have the life you planned ripped away. To stand in a small house with a child, a stack of bills and no safety net. To start over when you're already exhausted. Why tell me now? She asks finally. What for? So you can decide, he says. If you want to step back before you get dragged into my mess, before you're standing next to a man who used to be someone, and now is just trying not to fail twice. James, she says softly, look at me. He does. His eyes are unguarded in a way she hasn't seen before. Whoever you are, she says, slow and clear, ordinary, steady, rich or broke, I'll stay. His eyes shine suddenly and then widen, like he's not sure he heard her right. He blinks hard, jaw working as he fights to keep his voice steady. You don't have to say that just because you feel sorry for me. I'm not saying it out of pity, she answers. I've already lived the story where a man walks away the minute things get hard, where the money disappears, and so does his promise.
I won't live that story again, not with you. Share it with me, she continues. The fear, the mess, the starting over. If you carry it alone, it'll crush you. If you hand me a piece, it'll be lighter. We're already carrying bricks together. What's a few more? Something loosens in his posture. You'd really stay, he asks, even if I never get back what I lost? I don't need you to be the man you were on paper, she replies. I need you to be the man you are here. She taps the step between them. In this yard, with my daughter, with me. The breeze shifts, cool against their faces. The tension that's been coiled in his shoulders for months finally begins to unspool. She draws another breath, and this time her words don't just comfort, they aim forward. We'll start a new company, she says. He blinks. Company? The word sounds strange in this yard of tools and dust. Yes. Her gaze sweeps the unfinished coop, the bricks, the stacked lumber. You didn't lose your experience. You still know how to manage people and money. And you told me you still have capital, a fairly large amount, remember? The corner of her mouth lifts. We'll use it, slowly, carefully. Brick by brick like this wall we're planning.
Hope flickers across his face, fragile but bright. "You'd really build something with me?" he asks. "Together," she says. "We can create work for other people too, people who need a chance as badly as we do. You handle planning, paperwork, deals. I'll handle customers, the day-to-day, the stubborn parts. We don't have to wait for someone to invite you back to a chair. We can build our own table." His laugh is soft, but this time it doesn't crack. "Create jobs for others," he echoes. "That's what you're thinking about in the middle of all this." "I'm thinking about Nye," she says simply. "About a life where she doesn't see us drowning in fear every month. Where she sees us trying, even when it's hard." Nye's red coat hangs on a nearby chair. Its sleeve stirs in the breeze like a small hand waving. "What do you say?" Tudep asks. "Will you work with me?" His answer shows first in his shoulders, then in his eyes. The weight he's been holding alone finally shifts. "Yes," James says, "I'll work with you, anytime." Diep stands and offers him her hand. "Come on," she says, a tired smile softening her features. "If we don't hurry, Nye will scold us for being late." He takes her hand and rises. The door closes behind them with a gentle click, like the last page of an old chapter folding shut. Ahead, the narrow road to the school waits under the first streetlights. By the time they reach the gate, children will be spilling out in pairs and clusters. Nye will spot them, her face lighting up the way no paycheck ever could. She'll run, slip her small hand into each of theirs, and the three of them will walk home together under the evening sky. They don't know what their new company will look like in a year or in 5, but they know this: whatever they build next will stand on honesty instead of performance, on shared burdens instead of secrets, on the quiet, stubborn choice to keep walking side by side. When he has nothing left, will she give up on him? No. She tightens her fingers around his hand, and together they go pick up their daughter. In the end, James doesn't win back a title or a company. He wins something much braver, the chance to start again honestly, hand in hand with a woman who doesn't run from his ruins. And Diep chooses the harder path too, staying, sharing the weight, and building a future where Ni grows up seeing courage instead of fear.
Maybe that's the quiet miracle of this story. Real security isn't in a desk or a contract, it's in the people who don't let go when everything else falls apart. If this episode moved you, please tap like and subscribe so more single mums and soft-hearted people can find it. And tell me in the comments, which moment hit you hardest? His confession, her answer, or their walk to the school gate together?